Do you want to hear the good news first or the bad news? It's a question that usually comes with some fear as well as some excitement. Sometimes the good news is better than the bad news, but oftentimes the bad news is better than the good news.
Caleb, I got you ice cream, but it all melted.
Kyle, I got you Dr. Pepper, but there's a hole in the bottom.
Caleb, I got you a new car, but it's a matchbox.
Hey Kyle, I fixed a dent in your car, but now there's a hole.
Caleb, I washed your favorite shirt, but I think I used too much bleach.
Today's story has some bad news, but then there's some really good news. And then the really good news comes when Jesus does this crazy, amazing miracle. Does anyone remember what a miracle is? That's right. A miracle is something that God can do that is impossible for humans to do. 2 weeks ago, Jesus showed us how he could know a person's past without even asking them. And then last week, Jesus turned 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish into food for 1,000. Those were some pretty cool miracles. But I have a secret. Today's is even bigger. It happens when Jesus gets word that one of his best friends is sick. You see, Jesus was very close to this certain family. They show up many times in the Gospels, and we know them as Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Jesus spent a lot of time with them in Bethany, and they believed and followed Jesus the best that they could. One day, some messengers came to Jesus and told him that Lazarus had become very sick. They told him to come quickly and heal him because they thought he was probably just gonna die. But instead of going quickly, Jesus finished his teaching and healing people where he was, and then headed to the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. So we've been talking about compassion over the past few weeks. Can anyone remember what compassion is? Obviously, Jesus had compassion on Mary and Martha and was saddened by the experience that they had gone through. But Jesus knew something that they didn't. In fact, before even Jesus showed up, in John 11:4, he says, "But when Jesus heard it, he said, 'This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it.'" At this point, when Jesus arrives in Bethany, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. That's a long time, and a person that's been dead for 4 days doesn't smell very good. I mean, if you'd been dead for 4 days, people would probably given up hope that you're going to be healed. But Jesus tells Martha in verse 23, he says, "Your brother will rise again." It's funny, she responds by saying that she knows in the last days when all of us are resurrected that he'll come back. But Jesus says something very important. He says, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he dies, yet he shall live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Then Mary comes to tell Jesus that if he had just been there sooner, her brother wouldn't have died. Jesus has compassion on her, and when he sees the tomb and the people, he begins to cry. So if you were watching this scene unfold, what would you think is about to happen next? Well, Jesus did something that nobody expected. He asked them to open the tomb. Mary said, wait, Jesus, we really shouldn't do that. He's been dead for 4 days, and it's gonna smell terrible. But Jesus does it anyway, and he stands at the door and he prays to God. He says, "Father, I thank you that you hear me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." Then he yelled, "Lazarus, come out." Wait. Hold on. Jesus just asked a dead man to come out of the tomb? Things could go a variety of different ways here, right? First, nothing could happen, right? Jesus would look like a total failure. Secondly, Jesus could raise Lazarus from the dead, but also scared everyone so bad that they just run away from him. Third, Jesus could have raised Lazarus, but only for a short moment. And lastly, what we see happen is that Jesus raised him from the dead, and everyone instantly recognizes that Jesus was from God, and they began to glorify him. Everyone was amazed with the power that Jesus had. Right? So we've seen Jesus with power over our minds, being able to know our past, over bread and fish, and now Jesus shows power over life itself. So let me ask you this. How would you live differently if Jesus had raised you from the dead? The amazing part of this story is that years later, Jesus himself conquers death when he comes back to life as the perfect substitute for our sin and death. That means that Jesus has power over our past, he has power to provide for us in the present, and he has power over our future. That is good news. So will you live each day knowing that you have the power of God inside of you? And will you trust him to take care of you? Will you trust that God will forgive you of your sins and save you from death? You see, this story, combined with the previous two stories, give us certainty that no matter what happens in our life, we serve a Jesus who has power over sin, over death, and over everything we need to live each day.